Hello guys, Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench with a croaky throat, and I've been asked via a few different mediums, people are kind of asking, can they see an update on Arizona? So yeah, of course you can. This is something I'm working on and off, and very, very slowly proceeding through it, and to be honest, I'm thoroughly enjoying it because when you're in the mood for doing photo etch, this is rewarding. So, bit of an update of where we are. If you look back at my last video we did, I think it was called What Have I Been Up To? That's what that video was called. And I showed you the hull and everything. Since then, I've done some filler work on the hull. This obviously isn't going to be plated like Titanic, so I can use filler. It doesn't have to be sprue goo. But because I'm using filler, it means all the dust and everything is sanding. I don't want it in the house, so I'm waiting for the weather to get a bit warmer, and then I'll be working outside and get the hull done. Somebody commented that I'm doing this wrong. What you should be doing is starting with the hull and building up. Yes, that's what everyone does with ship models, but when I can't work on the hull, I can't be building up. And let's face it, if I built the hull as it is here, and I got the decks on and everything, and then I decided I want to do, the first thing I want to do is the funnel, okay, I'd have to build the funnel. I wouldn't put the funnel on the model and then put photo etch on it. I would build the funnel as assembly and then fit it to the model. And here is the funnel. I don't believe I glued the top on. No, I didn't. So there's the funnel. The top's not glued on. This is actually kit photo etch, as I showed you before. And let's get this out of the way. So here we've got our funnel. We've got our splinter shields here. This is Edard photo etch on here. Then we've got these window frames around the lookouts. I've painted inside there the XF17 blue, which is, I believe, the colour I'm going to be using on this model all over. So yeah, those are fitted on there. I've got the ladders going up there, and there's also, I don't know if I can get in there, but there are ladders inside there as well that go up through a hatch in the bottom, which is, the hatch is photo etch. Of course, it's photo etch, duh. The hatch is Edward, and these ladders, these beautiful ladders, are KA or Mark 1 designs. These railings here are all Edard. In hindsight, if I'd have known Edard were going to come out for a set with this, I would have just got the Edard. I wouldn't have bothered with the KA. The only good bit about the KA is you get these walls of these lookout towers in photo etch, which is a nice touch, but that's the only benefit. I don't really like the way they work on things. I don't like the way they have their folds, and the brass is quite sort of flat and featureless, really. What I do like about the Edward stuff is you get with the railings here, you get this lip that goes around the edge of the deck that comes with the railings, so you've got a lovely big area there to work with. Same with these down here, with these little bits down here. These are all Edward. And these straps around here, that's all Edward. You don't get any of that in the KA set. So in fact, other than these ladders, other than those ladders, that is all Edward. So as you say, I don't really see the point in having the KA set, to be honest, but there we go. So there we are. So that's all done. So that's looking lovely. You can see that there close up. So that's the funnel done. I've also done some work on these crane posts, masts, whatever you're going to call them. Thank you to Ben from Midwest Model Shop, his channel. You need to be careful about where you fit these ladders, because when they actually go on the model, these ladders will foul a couple of boats. Let me just show you, in case you're not familiar with what Ben's been saying on his channel. This is the old standard of trumpeter instructions, where they have you build all the sub-assemblies first. It's right near the back. There we go. These boats here, these 30-foot motor boats, they will foul the ladders on the cranes if you're not careful, because where they go, you can see here, the crane post is there, and if you get that ladder out of position, it will foul on that boat. So obviously when these go on, they're handed. So this is obviously going to be the starboard, and this one will be the port. So we'll have these ladders facing inwards. Okay, I'm guessing that's right. No, it's the other way around. There we go. Yeah, that's right. So it's the other way around. So you want these ladders facing inboard so that they don't foul on those boats there. Okay, so thanks for that, Ben. Brilliant. I may be wrong in the way I'm talking about this, but again, you can see this railing around here has got this ledge on it, this lip, Again, that's Edward. This is all Edward on here, except for that ladder there is Mark 1 Designs, and I'm not sure that ladder there might be Mark 1 Designs, but that one definitely is, because it's got the nice folded edges on it. So yeah, if I know that might be Edward, whatever. So there we go, that's those. I've done the gussets on the bottom there, that's all Mark 1 Design, and they're all on that what's that, a lookout tower. I can't think what's going on that one, never mind. Oh, that's a gun tower, so that's going up in front of the on the main mast. So that's that one done. Now these are lovely. These are Mark 1 Design. Again, you can get these from Edward, but I don't think they're as nice as these. But that's all folded up from brass and all soldered, which is what I'm going to show you in a minute. We've got these edges on here, which is something I don't like. Rather than having an etched line to fold, they actually have these cutouts. I don't know if you can see it close up. I will show you in the bit that's coming up. But they have these cutouts, so you end up with like a bit of brass and then a slot, and then a bit of brass and then a slot. If I show you on the fret, you'll see it here. You can see along here, look, along this fold line here, you can see instead of having a line, they've got like a gap and then a bit of brass, then a gap and a bit of brass, and it's not very nice at all when it doesn't look good when it's folded. So what I've done is I filled them in with solder, and then I've gone over these with some Mr. Surfacer, as you would, because I put Mr. Surfacer on everything, and that just fills them in, and we'll see what they look like when they're painted, and if they need, I'll brush some Mr. Surfacer down them again, give them a gentle sandback. Sandback, that's a location in the UK, isn't it? And then I'll go again. But yeah, lovely. That's come out really, really nice. Got locations there for I think that's the actual launching mechanism, isn't it, that goes on there. And as I'm going to show you in a minute, there's also the cart that goes on there, and that little cart is going to go on there and hold the aeroplane. Again, you can get all this from Edward. And then also we've got the crane that goes on the stern of the ship. This is that crane there. Again, this is KA Mark 1, and that's all soldered. The little frames inside don't fit very well, but hey ho. And this is all soldered around the edges, and again we've got this sort of slotted approach to it all, so it's it's a little bit gappy. So I filled it all in with solder, then I'll go over it with Mr. Surfacer and then sand it back. But you can see the solder on there, which I'm going to show you in a minute. The solder is all up the insides, so it's nice and strong. And that's the thing, if that was just glued together with super glue, it wouldn't be rigid at all, but I can't twist that, I can't bend it. It's you can drop it, you can throw it around. It's really, really the way to go with photo etch, guys, if you can. And it's a skill that's very, very valuable and worth learning, because it's so valuable. Obviously when it comes to stuff like this, you can't solder any of this on because it's all onto plastic. You have to super glue it. But the secret for me, as I keep repeating myself, when you fit this stuff, anneal it, or if it's thin, just bend it, get it to fit, so when you actually place it there, it stays on its own. You, like this railing here, bend it, make it fit. Don't start at one end and then start bending it around, because what happens is one day it'll ping off. Make it all so it fits, and then when you glue it on, it's just all the glue is doing is seating it in place. It's not, it's not resisting it. It's all going to spring off. So there we go. So there we are then, guys. That's basically what I've been up to. I think I showed you this before anyway. I've done that work under there. The brown you can see is just Mr. Surfacer Mahogany, which is nice to have because you can see where it is on the plastic. When the plastic's grey, you can't see the Mr. Surfacer. It's nice. So when you're down in these little areas, working with a piece of cut off sanding stick on a pin, you just get in there to sand it. So there we are. These edges around here, this is all Edward. Oh no, this is from the kit, I think. I think this is from the kit, and these here, these bits. Something else I've noticed in the kit, which somebody pointed out to me, and they asked a question, and although they give you railings in the photo etch set for the model, there is absolutely no instructions on how to fit the railings, where to fit the railings, or anything in here. Absolutely nothing. So, bit of a letdown from Trumpeter there, I'm afraid. But there we go. So, there we are, guys. I've shown you where we are. That's where I am up to date with it now. I'm going to carry on working on it tonight, and I'm going to make up the I'm going to make up some more cranes, I think. I'm going to make up, there's the instructions here for the actual catapult that goes on top of the turret. This one is the main catapult that sits on the stern. As I say, that one's done. And then this is the main catapult. We've got a bit of folding up to do and some lovely soldering. So I'm going to enjoy doing that now while I listen to some stuff on YouTube. So enjoy this little tutorial. As I say, I'm not telling you how to do it, I'm showing you how I do it. Okay, so first things first, I apologise for my fingernails. They're disgusting. I bite them. I have tried to stop on countless occasions and fail. So yeah, sorry about that. They are disgusting. So you don't need to tell me in the comments because I'm already aware of it. Right, so looking along through the instructions, we've got these little carts here, and these are what go onto these catapults on Arizona, and they carry the aircraft. So, and basically you got that little bit on the end there, C50, and that's where the float will sit in there. So what we're going to do is cut this off the fret. We're going to fold it up, denib it, fold it up, and solder it. Okay, so I've got that part there off. So that's C49. Now on the fret we've got 3 of these for some reason instead of just the 2. So we've got a spare one, which is nice. So I've got the main part off there, as you can see. So I've got these these smaller parts to get off. So we're just going to get one of them off. Now with cutting PE, all right, we're going to go back to basics here. What you should never do is cut it on a mat like this, because what happens, and I should be able to show you here with the tweezers, when you push down, you actually put an indentation into the photo etch. So what will happen is when you cut it, you will actually bend the edge. So if you can imagine, if I use this here, if this is my piece of photo etch, if I've got it on a hard base and I cut it, it will stay flat. But if I give it something underneath, what will happen is it will bend down as you cut through it and it will stay there. So it's good to have something hard. A lot of people like to use a tile, an old ceramic tile. I used to use that, but stopped using it after a couple of near misses. What can happen is if your blade is a little blunt and you're pushing a bit hard, the blade can skate across the surface and it could skate towards you into your finger, whatever. So I saw this at a model show one day. This is from Little Cars, and it's basically a sheet of acrylic. You've got 2 sides to it. I haven't even used one side yet. I haven't used the other side yet, and this is probably, oh blimey, 8 years old, 10 years old. And it comes with this little thing here which you have to glue together, which is really, really handy, because if you're doing small parts like I'm going to be doing here, you can hold it over there and you can see what it is you're cutting, and it's hold it down and it saves it flying across the room. You can use your finger, you could use a little block of something or a rule or anything. Also handy for folding small parts. If you want to hold it down and fold something up, you can. Or you've got that little thing from PH Designs that I showed you last week. So we're going to cut this off of here. I'm going to use this nice acrylic sheet. The reason I like to use this is because it won't, the knife won't skate across it. It kind of digs in a little bit, as you can see. So what we're going to do now is cut one of these pieces off here. And as you can see, I'm using this round blade. Now, a lot of people like to use little blades like this. I don't, because what happens is you're always using the point of the blade, because you can't get into the photo etch. You can't use any other part of the blade than the very point. So you're kind of just going to wear out the point of that blade and not use any of the rest of it, which seems to me a bit pointless. No pun intended. And also because of that, it sort of blunts very quickly, and you end up sort of cutting out 2 parts and then that's it. I would much prefer using a round blade like this, because you can go in, you can kind of go in and you can roll. Alright, so you're almost sort of guillotining the part off rather than sort of mashing it off. You know what I mean? And even in tight areas like this, people will say, oh, you can't get in there with a blade knife like that. You can. I'll show you now. Right, I'm going to get into this corner here. So if you notice, I've got the knife at about 45 degrees and I can just push the knife into there. Okay, now one of the issues with this photo etch from KA models of Mark 1 design, I couldn't think of the name of them then, they don't really have much of it. If you look at Edard, they tend to photo etch the little tags as well, so you've got a bit of an edge to push up against, and on here you haven't really got that. So you've got to be a little bit careful not to cut into the part. But I'm just going to go over there with the blade like that, okay, and then just roll the blade like so, like that. Okay, and now I'm going to turn the fret around so I'm always working the right way that I want to work. Okay, so once again I'm going to go in there, roll the blade in like that, roll the blade, and off the part comes. And you can see I've worked in a very tight spot there with this rolled off blade. I haven't made any indentations on the part, I've made no indentations on the fret, and the blade is good for another 50, 100 parts, whatever. So now we need to denib it. Now on here, if I can get the camera to see it, you will see we have little tiny edges on there that need to be deburred. Now I have to be a little bit careful with the light. Now what I'm going to do is get rid of this thing which is reflective, and I'm going to change the light now so you can see better. Right, so that's much better. Now you can see what we're talking about, and you can see on the end there on the right hand side, you can see we've got the two little nibs. So just going to hold that in some tweezers. Okay, use this finger to change the orientation, and using a 400 grit sanding stick I'm just going to sand off that nib, and then on here I need to go across it, so I have to be extra careful not to bend it. Alright, and then we'll turn the tweezers over, do the same on the other side. Always go along the brass if you can, that way you won't bend it, but in some cases like in there you can't, you have to go across it, so you just have to go very, very gently. And the reason I use a sanding stick, I'm using like a 400 grit and it's fairly worn, is because it's finer than a file. If you use a file, the file teeth will kind of catch on the edge and it will sort of cause, it will just pick up on it. So we've got that there now, and we can see that when we look at this, it's not sort of sided, it's not etched on the surface, it's just a plain piece of brass. Okay, unlike say if we're looking on here, if you look at this part here, say, they were a band, weren't they? You've got the etching on here, but on the back side it's plain. Okay, so in fact that's not etching, that's actually holes through it by the look of it. Okay, I thought that was just etching on the surface. But if you look at say this one here, you've got the etching on the surface, you've got the rivet detail and everything, and on the back it's plain. Also notice that what Mark 1 Design do here, where the fold lines are, they don't actually emboss a line, they actually cut a serrated line into the brass, so that when you fold it you will actually get a serrated line which needs to be filled with something. So right, so we've got our parts cut off now. I'm going to keep this board out of the way. As you can see, it's very reflective and it's a bit of a pain. If I keep the reflection up there, I suppose that's all right. We'll keep it down the bottom, or just don't have it there at all. So now we've got this part here, we need to fold it. And again, this one, okay, there is no etching on either side, so it's just plain. Okay, because of the way the holes are done, there's no folded line, no embossed line in there to fold to like you get with Edward. On here you've just got those cutouts, so it doesn't really matter on this one which way you fold it, but you need to think about how you're folding, and we'll go into that at a later date with bigger parts. Think about how you're folding, think about what you're going to fold first. You know, for example, if I was using a photo etch folder like this one here, like this, which I think is one of the most handy tools you can have, they're absolutely brilliant, especially for bigger parts. They tend to be a bit cumbersome for smaller parts, but for the bigger stuff, you know, like these pieces here, there's no other way you're going to bend that really. You need one of these, I would say, and get the best you can afford, and avoid the plastic ones. I think the Mission Models ones are plastic. Get the metal ones. This is the Small Shop, so I think they're one of the best. But what I was going to say is think about how you're folding. Now, for example, if you want to fold, you've got a fold here, like you can see that this is going to get folded, say this is going to get folded up, and then these edges are going to get folded round, so that this edge here is going to be soldered onto here. Okay, so think about how you're doing things before you do it and what you're going to be able to get to. For instance, if I fold these ends up, I won't then be able to get in there to fold that up, but I will be able to put that in there and fold it up that way, but then they'll be in the way of me folding it over. So you have to think carefully, and also if you fold these sides up, then you can't put it in there that way, you can only put it in that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this folder, although I don't need to, I could just use a pair of pliers. Okay, I can fold that up there, but if you look, what happens is if I fold this here, I want to fold this up, I want to fold this here up, I'm going to fold that as well. So I need to either hang it off the end, like so, or turn it around like that, and then I can use this piece here. So I can use this little narrow area there. In fact, I'm going to use this one here, because you always want to try and stay as close to the center as you can. That's where the best clamping will be. Okay, so I've got that in there like that. So now I can come along in here and fold that up to 90 degrees. Okay, so that's that one done. Then I'm going to repeat the same on the other side. Fold that one up, and you can see these ends are getting folded anyway, so what I was saying was rubbish. I should have hung it off the end. Alright, and then with these here, what I'm going to do is fold, actually I'll fold that end in there, and you can see that one there is made for it. So I can fold that up. Now we don't need to be too careful about how we've got this on here, because it will always bend at the weakest point. And the weakest point is going to be where those serrations are. However, if you've got a fold line rather than these serrations, then it's best to make sure it's perfect. And I covered that in another video. I can't remember, I did one recently. So now these sides are just going to be bended in, or bent in like that, should I say, not bended. Okay, and then here you can just bend that in to suit there, and bend that in to suit there. Now I'm beginning to think this is probably not a good choice of part to show you how to solder, because it's so small. But maybe you'll get the idea. And you also need to be careful about folding things too much, because they will snap. Okay, so you can see, generally you get the rough idea. There is the part there, folded up. So now I'm going to get everything all nicely sorted, and then we'll do some soldering. And there we go, guys. You can see that's all folded and getting it nice and even. Okay, so I'll concentrate on this side first, because that side's slightly out, but I'm guessing that when I start to solder up, things might move anyway. But you can see it's all sort of just gently positioned there. I have to be honest, and I do speak as I find, as you all know, whether I'm sponsored in something or not, I will tell you the honest truth. And this KAPE, I'm not over the moon with. I much prefer the Edward, to be honest. I've never worked with Pontos, but looking at the design and the way things are made, I would prefer Pontos, I think. But this is all, I don't know. I think I would have preferred to have seen this made with the sides as one strip. So, and then you could just fold it all up. Whereas with it all being a bit like sort of this, it's not so good. But right, so let's get on to doing some soldering. So the equipment we're using for soldering, obviously we need a soldering iron, we need some flux, and we need some solder. If you look online, there are various stories and videos, and people will say, don't do this, don't do that, don't do something else. It's one of those things, everybody has their own way of doing things, and that's why I've called this is how I do it. Okay, this is how I do soldering. So if you do it differently, then you know that's great. I'm just showing you what I do and how I've taught myself to do this and what works for me. And as you've seen, I get very nice results. So first you've got a soldering iron, and I've got this little sponge in here, which a lot of people sort of wonder what it is. It's there to clean the nozzle. Now this isn't on yet, so it's not going to fizzle, but basically it's there just to wipe off any dirt and debris that's on the end of your tip. And you can see that the tip stays quite clean and shiny. So there are videos out there that show you should file this and get a nice edge on there. I would advise against that, because most tips these days don't seem to be a solid steel. They tend to be like a powdered material, almost like a sintered or something. And when you file them, they just disintegrate. So don't bother with the filing, just use it as it is. And then you just wipe it in there to keep it clean. This is a bit dusty, I should have cleaned it off. So once that's running, I have a, I can't show it because it's over here, the camera won't reach, but I have a, it's a Precision Gold digital soldering station. A55KJ, and I got it from Maplin's before they went bust, and I love it. It's got all these different, it's got 3 different sets of temperatures you can use, and it goes, you know, from sort of nothing up to I think about 600 degrees, I think. And I tend to set it at around about 400 because the solder I use is 240 degrees. Now I set it way too high, and I'll show you this. It's so that I can be like bang, instant, and it's done. If you actually set the iron at the correct sort of temperature, like 240 degrees, you may find you'll have a bit of delay because you'll get the heat soak going into the brass and everything. So I like to use too high a heat, and that way bang, you get in there quickly. And also if you are quick, it saves unsoldering previously soldered items. So if you can imagine, like if this was a piece of brass here and I just soldered something here, and now I'm soldering something on this end, if I have to put loads of heat into it, by the time the heat passes along, it melts that solder and that falls off. The other thing you can do is use different range temperature solders. So I've got some here, some solder paste. This one's a 179 and this one is a 139, I think, 138. So what I could do is basically start with using this solder, okay, which is 240. And then what I've done, say I'm building a soldered box, I could build the box with this. And then if I've got to add a few little clasps and handles to it, I could use the lower melting temperature solders, turn the temperature of the iron down, and then when I'm working with the handles and the clasps, the box won't fall apart. So that's how to work with complicated parts. But with simple stuff like this, I just need the one. These pastes, a lot of people swear by them. I hate them. I can't get on with them at all. They do go out of date, and these probably are out of date, but I mean, I don't think, I mean, they still work, so they obviously haven't gone out of date. I just don't like the way they work. You don't get a nice solder joint like you do with this, as far as I'm concerned. So to do this, you need a flux. Now, a lot of people say the brass needs to be spotlessly clean. It doesn't, you don't want it oily, but it doesn't need to be spotlessly clean. If you've been handling it and stuff, that's fine. The flux will take care of it. So, the other one is solder balls. You can get these little solder balls. These are great. You see on there, I've got open over a tray. And the reason being is the balls get into the threads. So when you unscrew the lid, you get 1,000 balls fall out. So open it over a tray and then you can put them back in. What I tend to do is open it on a piece of folded paper and then you can make that into a funnel and pour them back in. And this is really handy. If you have got a box or something, you could put some solder paste in or some flux in there, put a few balls in the corners, just run the iron round and it melts these and job done. Maybe I can show you that, I don't know. I don't do it very often, so probably won't be showing that today. So yeah, I'm going to use this solder. Now with flux, you can get your liquid flux, your car's red flux. This is something I really swear by, really, really good. And it does get into areas. But lately, I've been using more of this one. This is a power flow flux, for the ideal flux for lead-free solder. And it's a white paste. It's a bit, you can see I've got a cocktail stick in there. It's a bit smelly and the fumes are very nice. So it's best to have a fan on if you're using this to sort of take the smell away. But I'll show you how to use that in a second. And this is what I'm going to use today. And I've got my part now held in these clamping tweezers. So I know that I can hold it there and not burn my fingers or anything. So all I'm going to do, well, the first thing I'm going to do is turn my iron on. Okay, straight away we're going to 400 degrees. It's pretty up. That's the other thing with these more expensive irons. Now I turned it on and that is now at 400 degrees. There we go. That's it, that quick. And we're done, we're ready to go. And that's the beauty of a more expensive iron rather than the cheapy ones you get. They take forever to heat up. And you have no control over the temperature. You don't know if they're hot, cold or whatever. This one, I've got the digital readout and it tells me. So I've got this ready to go and we're going to do this side. Which side did I say we're going to do first? This side first. Okay, so I'm going to get my flux. And you can't really put too much on. I guess you could and make a mess, but the mess will just wash off because it's water washable. So I'm just going to dab some of this on here, just like so. Okay, and you can see I've got way too much on there, but that's okay. All right, I'm just going to dab that on there. I'm going to take my solder, and I'm going to hold it like that, and I'm just going to have it with the end just sticking out. I don't know if you can see that, but I've just got the end of the solder sticking up there in the air. I'm going to clean the tip. I'm just going to put some solder on the tip and then just wipe that off just to sort of make sure it's clean and everything. You can see now the tip is nice and bright, and we're just going to take a tiny drop of solder onto the tip. Okay, and that's probably a little bit too much, but it doesn't matter. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to use, you can see I use my fingers here to steady what I'm doing, and I'm literally just going to touch this on here. Watch. Okay, now you can see we've got a blob of solder. Come on, focus. You can see we've got a blob of solder on there, which is a mess. All right, now that is not satisfactory. So I clean the tip off so there's no more solder on the tip, and then I can just literally wipe the tip along there, and it will spread that solder out along that joint. And we can see we've got solder on the inside, and as I said, I used too much. And now I can get some flux, put some flux up there. The flux kind of draws the solder to it. It's almost like a solder magnet. And I can just run the iron up there. And you can see what I mean about the heat. It's just, it's instantaneously melting it. And we can see down inside there, the solder is all gone in. All right. So we'll have a close look at that under the camera. And we can see we've got solder all around the outside. And there's too much on there. Okay, and then you can see we've got solder around the inside. Now I'm also looking on this end here, and the bottom of the screen as you're looking, you can see there's a gap there. And we'll just come in with the iron again, and I'm going to run that down to fill that gap in. Alright, it's still not filled it in, so I'm going to do it again. There's a tiny hole there now, but I can go over that in a second. But you can see now that that is soldered, and that is very, very strong. All right, so now we can hold that, and then we can look at getting the other side done. And I'm just going to look under my magnifier, and then I'll come back. All right, so I'm happy I've got that all bent up nicely, and the flux is on there, so we can get rid of the solder now. And this is where it really comes into play, having the iron hot, because if I had to hang around and really work this solder, then it's likely to melt that side. And also, if you notice, I'm doing this, I'm not holding anything in position, it's all there under its own weight. There's nothing sprung into place. Reason for that is, if when I solder it, it does undo the other side, then it won't all spring out of shape. So even if it does melt the solder on the other side, it will just stay. So I've got the solder on there, as you see me just do. Okay, I'm going to bring the camera in closer so that I can watch what I'm doing through the camera. So again, my fingers here, okay, as a steady, and then I can just tap the iron on there, and as you can see, the solder comes off and runs around. You can see I've got a lot less solder on this side, so it's a much tidier joint. You can see the solder on the inside there. Okay. You can see the solder running around. That's pulled all in that joint. I'm just going to get some more. Just put a drop of flux up there, just a drop. And now I need the tiniest drop of solder on here. That's probably too much, so I'll wipe that off. There we go. And then I'm just going to tap that on there like that. And as you can see, we've got too much on there. Now, I've tried all the solder removal tools you can get, and none of them really work very well with photo-etched brass. They're designed for circuit boards where you can sort of push pressure down. There's the wicking ones where you push down, but obviously if you push down on the brass, as the solder melts, it just splits all the joints. So they don't really work well. And then you've got the vacuum ones, which they don't really work very well because you can't get in close to the... So all I do is, if I've got too much, I just sand it off. It's not a problem. So I'm going to put a little bit, get a little bit of solder from here. I'm going to put a little bit more on that end because I just don't like that end, the way that's gone. There we are. I'd rather have too much and sand it off than not have enough. Okay, and that's the thing to look for. Look inside the part and see that you've got solder in all your joints on the inside, and that way when you know you sand it, you're actually not going to just be sanding through what's on the outside. Okay, so now we've got to put the end on. So the end is going to go on. Which way does it go? It goes that way. So I've got to somehow get this end fitted onto here and hold it in place to solder it. So what I can try, I'm not going to be able to do all of that, am I? Let me have a little think about this and I'll come back. Right, so I've got this held in a piece of blue tack. You see I've got the end on there, and that's just held in there like that. So we'll see how it goes. As I say, this KA stuff doesn't really lend itself to assembly. It's not as well thought out as Edward is, for sure. I think if this is Edward, it would be one piece to all fold around, and then it would all just hold itself together while you tacked it in place. So, and I think you would have to do the same sort of thing here, even if you were super gluing it, because you've got to hold it in place for everything to set. So I'm just going to get a drop of solder on there. That's too much. Drop of solder on the iron, like that. And then I'm literally going to touch the corner. Again, got my fingers here. Because I literally just touched that corner. And this is where your flux plays a part. If you try and do it without flux, you'll never manage. And then I'm just going to touch that other corner. There you go. Now the solder didn't fill the gap. So I'm going to put a drop more solder on there. There we go. That's bridged across now. If you look at that closely, you'll see the solder has bridged the gap. Now what I want to try and do is make sure I get solder down in the bottom. So if I just put some flux down in there. Clean the iron. Drop a solder on the end, and then I might be able to just go in here and just literally touch it in there. There we are. And you can see we've got solder there across the bottom. So we can take this out of the blue tack. And now you can see we've got the part all together. Now we can see here that it's not perfectly straight. So what I can do in that case is hold it like this. And this is a real chance in now. Just apply some pressure. And it may straighten it out. And there we go. One soldered together cart for supporting an aeroplane. Now you can see that I can chuck this around. You know, you just see me clamp it in tweezers. I can clamp it in tweezers like this. It's not going to collapse. It's not going to bend and break. It's not going to fall apart. It should stay together pretty much forever. Again, 400 sanding stick. I would advise you use old sanding sticks and keep them for doing this, because you can see the deposits in there. If you use it on plastic, it will make the plastic dirty. So we can just lightly sand over here now and remove the excess solder. Okay, and then do the same back here and go all the way around, and I'll show you in a second the part finished. And there we are, guys, that's it, all cleaned up, ready for a coat of primer and some paint. And as you can see, it's all nicely soldered together, it's nice and solid. And you know, now these edges, I'll try and get the camera to focus, these edges here where you get these little areas, that's really the fault of KA for the way they've designed the parts. If it was Eduard or Pontos, there would be a fold line and you would fold it and there would just be a line there, you'd have a corner rather than these gaps to fill. So you can fill them in with a drop of super glue or Mr. Surfacer or indeed solder, and then you can you know, end up with a nice square corner on there. Then the only trouble is using Mr. Surfacer, it doesn't tend to stick to the metal that well, so if it's not really gone in there, it kind of may well come out again. So you know, get it painted quick and get it all sealed in. But there we go. I mean, you can see it's not very big at all. There's a millimeter ruler next to it, so what is it? It's about 12 millimeters long. So that's it, guys. So have a go. It really is worth having a go, because as I say, you can see that I can sand this now. I get that corner all nice and sharp in there. If that was photo etched together, it would more than likely fall apart. And the other thing is, I mean, you can drop it, you know, I can put weight on that, I can push down on it, it's not going to deform. It's just so much better than having things super glued. Obviously in some situations you have to use super glue if part of that assembly was plastic. You can't solder to plastic. But you know, give it a go, guys. It's not difficult. It's one of those things that everyone will tell you doing it wrong, and if you look at this video after it's been out a week, there will probably be somewhere in the region of 15 comments below telling me I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing. And that's the way it goes, and unfortunately that's the way it is. It's just one of those things. I'm trying to think of something else that's like it. I can't think of anything at the moment while the camera's on, but there are certain things in life where everybody has their own way of doing things and everybody else will tell them there's a better way. This is what works for me, and as you can see, I get a nice tidy job. There's no excess solder anywhere, and it's very strong. Okay, so 10 minutes away and I've got the other one done now. I can't remember which is which, but we've got both of them now ready to go on our catapults, and we can set our aircraft on top. One final thing, I have shown this before, a bit of a health and safety hazard with these. It's a fiberglass pencil. You can see the fiberglass strands you can extract, and these are from RS company. I think they're a worldwide company, and that's the part number. You can also get them from model suppliers, but I think they tend to be a little bit more expensive. But have a look anyway in your country and see what's best. So you can change the length of the bristles to sort of enhance the amount of scrubbing you want to do. But you can basically just go over your parts and it will just give them a nice clean and a good finish, ready for some etch primers. Unfortunately, I don't know of an etch primer that really works well on brass. But, you know, if you're not playing with your model, you're not handling it, then it's nothing to worry about, really. But it's just a good way of making sure there's no excess bits and pieces lying about that are going to get in the way. And I really would suggest going in with some sort of filling medium to fill in these corners, as I mentioned, as I showed you earlier on the catapult. So there we go. And the other thing these are really good for, going back to this catapult that we looked at earlier, you know, where you've got solder and where there's rivet detail. I don't want to go over this now because I've got Mr. Surfacer in these corners and it'll brush it out. But where you've got rivet detail, like on here, and you've got solder, you can actually use the brush to brush away the solder. Because the solder is softer than the brass, what you'll end up with is you'll end up with sort of polishing it away. You can see like there's quite a lot of solder worked its way up there. It looks like a lot, but it's like a micron thick. It's just that there was obviously a lot of flux in there and it's pulled it around. But there we go. So there we are. That was just my little catch-up really video, because people have asked me, sorry, why did I do that? I put the bin there. The health and safety side of things is these bristles tend to snap off and they get into your skin and they don't feel very nice. So I always put a bin there to catch the bristles that fall off. and also you really don't want to be breathing them in either. They're not very nice at all. But they're really, really good for cleaning brass. And as with most things, if they're really bad for you and they're a health and safety hazard, they're normally very good. So there we go. So now we're ready to go. So I hope you enjoyed that. Like I said, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of where I am with the Arizona. It's something I work on and off. It's nice to work on fiddly bits and pieces like this in between doing the Titanic hull, because the Titanic hull is daylight butchery, and this is all like, you know, doing the little bits and pieces like this. It's a nice bit of finesse and everything, and it's nice just to, you know, swap between the two. So there we go, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I'll see you all soon. I believe today is Thursday the 10th, is it today? No, it's the 11th of February 2021. Tomorrow obviously is Friday the 12th, because that generally comes after a Thursday the 11th. And tomorrow I'm hoping to have my U-boat here, and as soon as it comes I'll review it and we'll make a start on it. And I've had a look at some other videos that people have done, and I've got a few ideas that I'm going to put in there in the mix. But basically it looks like a very, very simple kit, so there's not really much any of us can do different, to be honest. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you all soon. Happy modelling, stay safe, follow your government guidelines, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.